It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The fantasy crystal ball is out, fantasy heads. Steele and I are taking a look at the keeper dynasty side of things and who you need to be targeting in these upcoming drafts. Stash them, keep them, play them. You're going to need them to take your teams over the top, all on the Friday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Let's tap in.
Your Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We made it, baby. It's Friday, people, and another week closer to what we need. That's the fantasy draft season. And thank you for joining us for the Friday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast and for making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Steele, doing the research for today's episode gets me fired up because being able to peg some of these young guys on the come up, obviously, depending on the league setup you're in, they might already be keepers, but if they're not, that's what today's conversation is about. We're doing the Fantasy Dynasty forecast, baby. We're taking a look at some of the best young pieces on the come up that we like. And I think there's obvious ones out there, Steele. Connor Bedard, Adam Fantilli. There's some obvious ones out there. They're going to be obvious keepers. And probably the next couple of years, they're going to be gone. But I'm taking a look at a couple of guys that are on the rise, taking a look at a couple of guys that are ready to make noise this year, and I know you're doing the same. So why don't I throw it over to you right off the top? You know, I like doing this, putting you on the spot like you've been putting me on the spot. Hit me with the first guy you're looking at. This isn't a top five. We're just looking at some of our favorite young players on the rise that are definitely studs in the dynasty realm.
Well, let's start with the number one guy on the board right now, Jake Sanderson on today's show.
Nice.
We've talked a lot about him the past week, but I want to talk about him first because a major contract that the Ottawa Senators just signed him to. 8 years, $8.05 million. For the young stud on the blue line, only one year in the NHL. And again, like I haven't watched too much of him when he was in juniors as well as last year with his first year with the Ottawa Senators. But the belief that he is getting from the organization and the fans and, you know, the analysts around the NHL is undeniable. This kid seems like he's about to skyrocket, both fantasy value-wise and for the organization. And that's why they signed him right now and to get him under contract and get ahead of the game, really, for a guy like Jake Sanderson. We, again, talked a lot about him over the past 2 weeks, so I won't go in depth about more for Jake Sanderson, but he's got the defensive skill on this kid at such a young age is unbelievable to witness. 4 goals, 28 assists, 32 points. Again, it looks like everyone believes that his offensive ability is going to take off in the coming years as well, but the defensive game for him is sound right now. 147 blocks, 43 hits, had 132 shots last year. And again, he's going to continue to get better and better. So just, again, now that the hype around Sanderson is getting really, really surreal right now, you got to jump on him a little bit early. You don't want to reach on a kid like this. He is still very young. He's 21 years old, but you want to make sure that you've got him on your list and you're aware of what's going to happen in the coming years.
It's funny because you and I have talked a little bit about recently how we didn't think he was getting nearly enough credit and how there was maybe some people out there who were throwing a little bit of shade at this kid's game, which you and I were not having any of. And then boom, our boys in the front office in Ottawa secure what we're saying. $8 million a year, Steele. If you didn't buy into what he can bring on the ice, let those numbers do the talking because the kid just secured the bag in a very big way. And I'll leave it at this. His dad, Jeff Sanderson, great skater, pesky little winger who was a very, very effective goal scorer at the NHL level. So this is a hockey family, and I know that really means nothing, but it's just another one of those intangibles that add into the intrigue for this player. He is got all it takes to be a top pairing defenseman, and I love that you have him on this list because if you can get him in the dynasty side of things, he ain't going nowhere on my team for a very long time. He is a regular keeper, that is for sure. I'm looking at it this way, Steele, and I'll hit my 3 kind of honorable mentions off first very quickly. Yaroslav Askarov in Nashville is behind Lankinen, and he's behind UC Saros right now on the depth chart technically. I could see him easily taking that backup spot. Am I saying he's taking UC Saros as number 1? Of course not. That's not happening this year, probably not even next year. But if Nashville gets frisky with maybe wanting to move Saros and get a ton of value while the changing of the guard continues to happen, you know what I'm saying here? That guy's on my list. He had a very good AHL performance last year. Second, there is a lot going on that I like with the Dallas Stars. A lot of good young pieces. Logan Stankoven had a beast season in the WHL last year, and he almost made the Stars team out of training camp last season. I just wanted to bring up his numbers in the dub because they were just crazy. He also has got a pesky little side to him, and he plays with edge. Steele, 97 points in 59 games. He just went off. And anyway, the last player, and I think you and I haven't mentioned him at all, Simon Edvinsson of the Detroit Tigers, of the Detroit Red Wings, is 6 foot. Steele, it's been a long day already, and it's 2:00. Simon Edvinsson of the Detroit Red Wings is 6'6" and can skate. And if not for an injury last year and a pretty deep blue line, they brought in a lot of guys on that blue line, Steele. I think he'd be making some moves into the lineup this year, but he will be very close. So keep an eye on all 3 of those players sooner than later. But my next 3 guys, Steele, are ready to make an impact right now. But I don't know what you think about that trio.
Look, these are guys that have been on the prospect list for a long time, and what they've done, again, in the WHL or in the juniors, wherever they've been playing, is undeniable. We've seen them at the World Juniors as well and dominating for their respective countries. We know what they're capable of, and just being able to get the chance to, like you said, especially Stankoven, almost making it from training camp last year.
Yeah,
he's got undeniable skill, and just seeing all these young guys that are now entering into the league and prospering. It's great to see the young success throughout the NHL as well. So there's a lot of young talent out there. We've got a lot of names on this list.
Yes, we do.
Those were your honorable mentions. Who's your number 1 guy? Or not number 1. It's not a list, but who's your guy you want to talk about?
Yeah, first guy I'll talk about, and I'll do it quickly because I'll take us to break because I do want to keep today nice and short. I think Logan Cooley is going to get all the opportunity in Arizona to play with some really good players in that top 6. And I actually think he might actually get a real look to be the number 1 center, Steele. And he was a standout at the University of Minnesota. He only finished 3 points behind Adam Fantilli for the NCAA lead. And I think he's just impressed at all levels. Also at the under 20s for the Americans. I love what he's doing at a number 3 overall draft pick. We've seen these guys step right into the NHL in the right setting. And I think after looking at his numbers, 36 points in 24 games last year, I just think he can really do it at all levels. And I expect him to actually get a look with a fellow American in Clayton Keller. And when we start to look at these good situations, Steele, and the caliber and what he's been able to do, he's going to get all the shot in the world to make an impact at the NHL level this year. So I'm taking a big, long look at Logan Cooley. Little bit of a small issue, size issue, 5'10", but I think the skills are more than enough to make up for it.
I think they are as well. Excuse me there.
Here he is.
I think they are as well. We've been talking about the Arizona Coyotes train, the hype around them, and the direction that this organization is now heading in. We love Clayton Keller. Not enough respect on Keller's name.
No.
Nick Schmaltz has been very underrated. You can question the peripheral stats, but the offensive skill is there for Nick Schmaltz and all of the young talent that we've talked about over the summertime. Jack McBain. I'm blanking on Michelli as well. Gunther, Dylan, thank you. That was the player I was looking for.
Yeah.
Dylan Gunther as well. All of this young talent now for the Arizona Coyotes is now prospering, and they're getting their chance right now. And we know what these young kids are capable of. We don't know how great the Arizona Coyotes team will be, but they are heading in that right direction.
Most definitely, and a couple of pieces that we just mentioned could kind of fit the mold for that list of what we're talking about, Steele. Fantasy, Dynasty, look ahead. Where can you really start to stash a couple of these studs? A couple of them that we're going to talk about are probably already gone in a lot of formats, but this is for everyone, not everyone. Steele, you know how hectic my keeper dynasty is. It's 16 teams. We're in our 11th season, so it's really a lot of these guys are already gone, but some people are just starting dynasties. They might be in their second or third year. Some of these pieces are likely out there, so I'm saying Logan Cooley, snatch him while you can. He's going to be an absolute star. I got a couple more guys I want to talk about. I want to get to Steele's last couple as well. We got lots to talk about, including dropping a couple more nuggets about our listener league cutoff, September 20th. Make sure you continue to hit those DMs. But today is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Football season, it's back, baby. And FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long. Right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you get bonus bets back every time they win in the regular season. Steele, you know I'm loving this one. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you get bonus bets for every single regular season victory. That's bonus bets you can be laying on the spreads, the props, the over-unders, and a whole lot more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon.
This is David Harrison of the Locked On Commanders podcast to draw your attention to the taste that's going down in the bread aisle. All thanks to Dave's Killer Bread, bread amplified. Anyone can bake bread, few can rock it, and Dave's Killer Bread is the champion of killer taste, killer texture, and is for those who want to rise above the boring. Organic and healthy doesn't have to mean boring when it's made with the highest quality organic and non-GMO ingredients, packed with whole grains, fiber, and protein. 21 whole grains and seeds bread has a subtle sweetness and a seed-coated crust, while good seed products are the boldest and sweetest of all. Dave's Killer Bread was built on the belief that second chances can change lives, because after spending 15 years in prison, not only did the guy with the guitar you see on every loaf turn his own life around, he's helping others to do the same. By hiring the best people for the job, regardless of their background, he's ensuring your mornings no longer taste like cardboard, your taste buds don't have to feel sedated, and your sandwiches can become superstars. Visit daveskillerbread.com to learn more and look for Dave's Killer Bread in the bread aisle of your favorite grocery store.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your favorite team from all 4 major sports leagues, including the NCAA, your team every single day. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode. Remember, hit the subscribe button. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers. We appreciate all that love and support you show us. Follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Leave a 5-star review. We do really appreciate everyone who tunes into the show and showing us all that love across all platforms. So thank you so much for that. Continuing though on the fantasy dynasty keeper forecast for the next, this upcoming season, but for a number of years as well.
Yeah.
I want to talk about this player, and I know you're going to like it because I know you are a favorite of the, maybe not a favorite, but you like this team and where they're heading this upcoming season and what they did last year. It's going to be Quinton Byfield for me. I think he's going to get a great opportunity on that top line. For the Kings with Anze Kopitar and Adrian Kempe. Even if they do shuffle the lines a little bit and he drops back down to the second line left wing spot, he's playing with Pierre-Luc Dubois. If he goes down even further, he's got Victor Arvidsson and Philip Deneau. This team is very, very they've got a great depth in LA right now. And Quinton Byfield just adding to that as a young prospect right now.
Love it.
The stats at the OHL and AHL level, he killed it with the Sudbury Wolves. 32 goals, 50 assists, 82 points in 45 games. Even in the AHL with the Ontario Reign last year, 15 points in 16 games. It hasn't quite transferred over to the NHL level as of right now. Only 22 points in 53 games last year, only 3 goals, which is quite low for a goal scorer like him. But now, again, he dealt with a little bit of injuries the past 2 seasons. But now, again, if he's playing on that top line with Anze Kopitar and Adrian Kempe, I know Kopitar's a little slow, but Kempe's got the speed, Dubois got the speed, Fiala's got the speed, and Byfield can keep up with them. So I expect him to continue shooting the puck a lot more this upcoming season. His shooting percentage was absolute garbage last year. He wasn't shooting the puck enough. Just wasn't able to find the back of the net. But those peripheral stats will continue to climb, and playing on a very, very sound LA Kings team, I think it's going to be great for his career.
So balanced as well, Steele. And I think that's where you can maybe find a nugget, diamond in the rough almost. And I know it's hard to say that about a guy who was a top draft choice. but he hasn't lived up to the hype. And, he's got all of the skills and abilities to get it done at the NHL level. We've seen some flashes of it. But what I think excites me the most about what you're talking about here is some people are starting to overlook Quinton Byfield, and I think it's too early to do that.
Yeah.
Because also, you mentioned that balanced attack in LA. He doesn't have to be that guy. He can literally just benefit of playing with some really, really good veteran pieces. Kempe's been in the league a number of years. Fiala's now been in the league a number of years. Same with Dubois. Aside from Kaliev, the rest of that top 9 is pretty much all veterans. And I think now you're going to be able to see him blossom. Also, let's not forget the LA Kings were in the top 4 in scoring last year. They may even been top 3. So this team can put the puck in the net, and I expect them to actually score even more this year, Steele, and that means your boy's getting some peripheral love. I'm going to leave one of the guys that I like the most till very end, and he's not up there on the board, so I've talked about him before, so I'm going to go back to the well. Matt Boldy, you love this one. I don't need to get too in-depth on this one. Today's episode is going to be a short and sweet one, people, because we have been getting a little long in the tooth. I like saying that. Matt Boldy has 75-point potential, in my opinion. No problem. Yes. I know the foot speed leaves a little bit to be desired, but I think he's working on it. He's a big boy, 6'2", 200 plus pounds. But I think what comes along with, his production in the league, by the way, 102 points in 128 regular season NHL games. We got to be paying attention to what's going on for a kid who's only 22 years old, Steele. And I double checked it. He's 22. My thing with him is, what comes around with it, let me complete my point, is dedication to your craft. Yes. Now he knows he's an NHLer. He knows he needs to pick up that conditioning and the foot speed a little bit. And I think you're going to see this kid explode this year. I've said it a couple of times. I almost hate going off as much as I do because I know you're going to take him in our couple of drafts. You're going to take him right off my table, and I'm going to be shook. But people should be out there paying attention. 255 shots on net last year, 5 game-winning goals. He's also clutch. This is a kid that you got to have your eyes peeled because, to me, Steele, he's the future in Minnesota, along with Kaprizov. It's going to be these two dudes taking them offensively to the future. So I love getting a piece of a guy who's going to be a cornerstone face of the franchise type player.
Absolutely love it. I wasn't going to be the one to bring up the Minnesota Wild and Matt Boldy on this. I was going to save that for you, or I was going to leave it to you, and I'm
you knew I had to do it.
Did. I knew you had to, but yeah, you're right. If I do get the chance, I'm taking Matt Boldy off your hands.
That's okay.
Hopefully there's no there's still love between us if it does happen.
I got
but
you.
Yeah, Matt Boldy, like you said, he's going to be playing with Kaprizov. Those two guys will be running this team for a very, very long time. Even some of those young guys on the blue line, those young prospects that we talked about, Kalen Addison and Brock Faber, continuing to develop their game. But for me, again, a lot of people don't watch the Minnesota Wild. They don't understand what the team is all about, the game play, the style of play that this team plays with, as well as now that he's coming into fruition. He has a 30-goal season. He has 65 points last year.
Good season.
Kaprizov's going to expect more. The coaching staff's going to expect more, and the organization and the fans expect more, especially when it comes to around the postseason time as well. I've got a couple more guys. I've got one more guy on my list that I really want to talk about. I've got 2 that are on the honorable mentions. One of them, Wyatt Johnston. We love this player for the Dallas Stars. We have to mention him just because he is still 22, 21 years old, playing second-line center minutes with Jamie Benn. And this guy, what he was able to do in the postseason last year was just incredible to witness. So I want to mention Wyatt Johnston there. I also know you're going to like this player a lot. Let me just bring up the stats for Mason McTavish as well.
Of course.
First round, 3rd overall, still 20 years old, 21 in January, but almost played a full season last year. I want to say he's only been in the league for 1 year. 17 goals, 43 points. The peripheral stats are okay for a 20-year-old. 55 hits, 37 blocks, and 161 shots. But again, this guy has 25 goal scoring ability in him for next season, I believe.
For sure.
A lot of young talent, the Anaheim Ducks, Trevor Zegras, Troy Terry, Leo Carlson now as well. There's probably a couple of Jamie Drysdale I know you like. But this team is a very young team. And it's going to take them a while to develop, to become a threat in the Pacific Division or even a threat for the Stanley Cup. But it's going to happen because of all the talent that they have right now. It's just going to take time for them to develop that game with a lot of small bodies. Trevor Zegras is not a big guy. Leo Carlson's not a big guy. Mason McTavish is not a big guy. So they're going to really have to develop and fill those other spots with some guys and some pieces that can really develop and help their game move along forward. Great. So I want to mention Mason McTavish. I do have one other player, but I'll throw it back over to you.
Yeah, no, I love all those takes. Let me just touch on Dallas super quick because I did briefly mention I love what they are building in Dallas, and I think there's going to be a lot of winning for a lot of years. Miro Heiskanen's going to anchor that blue line. They have the boy number 1 in Jake Ottinger. They're now putting the pieces together up front with Wyatt Johnson, RoboCop, Rupe Hintz, and I just mentioned Stankoven. There's a couple of other guys on the come up. I love what's going on there. So I would say as the keeper dynasty side of things, that's one of those teams to farm for sure. Keep hitting up the Dallas Stars. And your point about the Anaheim Ducks, they're definitely not there yet, but they're building it the right way. They tore it down to the studs, and now they have a couple of young studs on the come up. And Mason McTavish was a guy that got it done. There's a theme here, Steele. All of these players we're looking at are elite prospects who have been able to get it done at every level of professional hockey that they have played. So we're not going out on limbs here. We're trying to predict the next big one. And Mason McTavish has enough skill and offensive talent to bring 75 to 80 points a year once he hits his prime. That still might be a year or two off, but I've already stashed him. I want him on my team. I might even move him because he's such a sought-after piece, but that might be in a part of a bigger package, which I can't even think about right now.
Might have to. We're going to have to wait till the draft happens and see where he actually ends up falling. And if someone else snatches him up from you, we got a couple more players on this list. We're going to tease that up for later. We're not going to mention the names right now, but thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day, Monday through Friday. Make sure you hit that subscribe, hit the follow button, leave a 5-star review. Again, if you want to be a part of the Fantasy Hockey League, we got 2 different leagues right now, the casual and competitive league. The cutoff date for the entry is September 20th, and the draft will be the following week on the 27th and the 28th. And whoever gets entered, whoever does end up being in the league, you'll get an email from us once we complete that draw. And we are just super excited for this upcoming season with everybody who wants to participate. So thank you guys so much for tuning in every single day.
NFL Sunday Ticket is now on YouTube and YouTube TV, which means that you can stay close to your team even if you don't live in their town. Like, maybe you're a Raven who married a Seahawk who got a job in the land of the Falcons. With NFL Sunday Ticket, you can watch your team's out-of-market Sunday afternoon games no matter where you live, because you shouldn't have to change teams, even if you change towns. NFL Sunday Ticket, now on YouTube and YouTube TV. Go to youtube.com/presale to get $50 off.
Terms and embargoes apply. Offer ends 9/19. No refund. Subscription auto-renews.
If you're a business owner, listen up. Your company could be mentioned right here. With the NHL season right around the corner, Locked On has a special locals-only NHL kickoff package. 2 local businesses, yes, only 2 local businesses can sponsor this podcast for the upcoming NHL season. Find out how you can get this exclusive sponsorship and hear your business on this podcast. Text the word advertising to 33777. or visit LockedOnPodcasts.com/advertising and let us know who you are. Our team will assist you to achieve advertising success with Locked On. Once again, text the word advertising to 33777 or visit LockedOnPodcasts.com/advertising. We look forward to hearing from you.
Flip, I'll talk about my last guy.
Please.
And this one, I'm not sure how you're going to feel about it.
Okay.
But I really like
out.
what this player can do.
Okay.
And last year was a little bit iffy for him. Injury, a serious injury happened to him. But I want to talk about Oliver Wahlstrom of the New York Islanders.
Okay.
This kid, again,
Interesting.
First round, 11th overall back in 2018. A lot of hype around this kid coming out of Boston College. And it, again, hasn't really transferred into the NHL level. 21 points in 44 games his first year, 24 points in 73 games his second season. And then he only played 35 games because he got injured. But he had 16 points. He had 70 shots, 50 hits, and 15 blocks. So even though he played 35 games, the peripheral stats are quite there. If he were to play a full season, those numbers would be pretty impressive for a guy like Oliver Wahlstrom. But the reason I bring up Wahlstrom is Matthew Barzal is fully healthy now coming into the season. They now have a true number one center in Bo Horvat, who brings that defensive ability and the offensive ability to his game. I know the New York Islanders are not an offensive-minded team. Defense comes first to them. But when you bring in Matthew Barzal, who's a playmaker, Bo Horvat, who's a juggernaut in front of the net, and then a guy like Oliver Wahlstrom, who can score goals and be that left wing guy that they really need him to be, I like him he's only 23 years old. I really like, how I feel about the New York Islanders. I do like this team a lot. And I just want to mention him into this pile with a lot of these other guys, because I think a lot of people will overlook Wahlstrom just because he was injured last year. As well, again, the New York Islanders are not an offensive-minded team.
This one comes with a lot of risk, but he was a player that I actually traded for in his second year in the NHL because I was buying into what I saw from him in his junior career. He can also shoot the puck. He has a rocket of a shot, and I feel like that's one of the parts of the game that might be going away with it. Everyone's just good. His shot stood out to me. I love that about a player. I also love that he plays with a bit of edge, and you mentioned the peripherals. He's 6'2". He likes to mix it up. He doesn't hate using his body. It's just that body hasn't been able to hold him up. And the knee injury was a serious one. So I like everything you're saying. This one would just be very risky. But, Steele, that would mean a lot of GMs are probably going to overlook him, like you said. Yes. So you might be able to take a flyer on him, maybe as, back end of your draft and really get lucky with him. It's just that body. A little bit of his puck ability sometimes lacks, but I like it, Steele. I've liked this player. I wouldn't have put him on my list, but that doesn't mean you're wrong. I got one more player, and I'm going to keep this one short because I probably sound like a broken record with my boy on the right wing with Connor Bedard and Lukas Reichel. And this guy has gotten it done at every level that he's played at. And I think we need to pay attention to this because he dominated the AHL at 20 years old. In 23 NHL games, he had 15 points. And I love what's going on, at least on paper, for that top line. Taylor Hall can come in and be that steadying veteran presence to play with two guys. This guy's relentless on the forecheck. I love watching him play. And I think that hockey IQ combined with his ability, and he's going to play with the next super kid in Bedard. I'm going after Lukas Reichel because I think even though overall we like the Chicago Blackhawks to struggle and still be bad for another year or two, I think the elite ability for that top line to probably click and score a lot of goals is keeping me looking at him. And honestly, 50 to 60 point range for Reichel is right where I'm pegging him. I could even go a little higher if I was on a couple of wobblies, but I'll say 50 to 55 is right where I'm at.
I think that's where he'd be at, especially playing with Connor Bedard. Connor Bedard's going to make this guy look like an absolute stud out there. He is, is a stud in his own right, but Connor Bedard's just going to elevate that even more than what a lot of
loving
people
that
are
angle.
expecting. Look, these are the Dynasty guys. There's a lot more we could have had on this list, but
course.
I love your list. Logan Cooley, Matt Boldy,
Lukas Reichel.
Thank you very much. And all of your honorable mentions.
Yep.
Look, there's a lot of young talent throughout the NHL, but these are some of the names that we are really keeping an eye on for this upcoming draft.
Yes,
and
sir.
We are very excited about that. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Make sure you're tuning in Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. Have a great day. Have a great weekend for that fact. Yep. Good luck with all your bets out there, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.
If you're a business owner, listen up. Your company could be mentioned right here. With the NHL season right around the corner, Locked On has a special locals-only NHL kickoff package. 2 local businesses, yes, only 2 local businesses can sponsor this podcast for the upcoming NHL season. To find out how you can get this exclusive sponsorship and hear your business on this podcast, text the word advertising to 33777. Or visit LockedOnPodcasts.com/advertising and let us know who you are. Our team will assist you to achieve advertising success with Locked On. Once again, text the word advertising to 33777 or visit LockedOnPodcasts.com/advertising. We look forward to hearing from you. Hey, Prime members, you can listen to this Locked On podcast ad-free on Amazon Music. Download the Amazon Music app today.